Step one is you torque them in sequence from number 1 to number 22 in the right sequence to 40 Newton meters. And then you come back to number 1 and you start over with number 1 and go through number 22 in order to 70 Newton meters of torque. And then you wait 10 minutes. And then you twist them in sequence 90 degrees and then twist them another 90 degrees. It feels like you're going to twist them off actually, but of course you don't. Now I've got this torque meter, this torque wrench set to 40 Newton meters, and of course this is one of those click types. I love it. So number 1 is here, number 2 is here on the first cam tower down from the, so it's between cylinder down from the chain, it's between cylinders 2 and 3. That's number 1, that's number 2. So that's 40 Newton meters, that's 40 Newton meters. Let's see what that is in foot-pounds. 40 Newton meters is about 30 foot-pounds, so it's not very much. Okay, number 3 is Newton meters. Now I'm going to do them at 70 Newton meters, and I'm going to start at number 1 again, which as you recall is right here on this cam tower. So now I got to get them all to 70 Newton meters. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that was number 22. Now we're going to, that was 70 Newton meters. That was our second sequence through those bolts. Now we're going to wait 10 minutes. And then what we're going to do is twist those bolts exactly, not to a torque this time, but to a 90-degree twist. We're going to put a 90-degree twist in sequence in all those bolts, and then we're going to come back and put another 90-degree twist. So, and then we'll be finished. While we're waiting on that head to settle, we can put this intake exhaust manifold back on there. Sometimes it can be a little tricky. It shouldn't be too tough. Notice we didn't move the turbo or anything. We kept it mounted to the intake manifold, and so we just got it sitting down here. The very first thing we have to do is put this gasket on. I had a head work, so that surface is smooth. We don't use any gasket sealer on these gaskets. These are just straight metal to metal. So we put the gasket on there, and then the easiest way I found is to start with the intake manifold and try to get it going. On this back bolt, you see. And then it has to be pretty straight, so you got to get it down in the, and that thing is in the way naturally. Got to get it down in between the grooves, and to compound your problem, you gotta put the, there's a new seal, a new O-ring seal that goes on the turbo right there. I put it right there, so that has to go inside there. Sometimes these are a real wrestling match. Terms of, okay, so we've let this thing sit for at least 10 minutes, and now we're going to twist these down by 90 degrees in sequence. So number 1, as you recall, is that second cam tower. So we got to twist it 90 degrees. So we start there, 90 degrees. Number 1, number 2. Okay, number 3, I got to look. Okay, that's number 22 at 90 degrees. Now it doesn't say rest. You might want to rest personally, but we got another 90 on every single bolt in sequence again. And it's just, I suspect you might need a cheater pipe. Depends on how long your bar is. But I'm telling you, it feels like they twist off, but in fact, they don't. There's one. There's 2. There's 3. There's 4. put the glow plugs in too soon before I put these pre-chambers in there. These pre-chambers go in real easy. I'm starting to put them in now. See, they're tanged, and now we've got those spacers. Remember those spacers that are 10,000ths more than the originals? And they just slide down in there, but you see the tang at the back of the head, and the tang is lined up like that, and you have to get them in there just the right angle, and then when you do, they just slide right down in there. And then what I do is just tap them in a little bit with a punch, just to seat them down a little bit like this. You can feel them when they seat, and then what goes over them is just a cap. It's just a screw that screws into the head like that. This is where you need that special tool, and so the special tool from Mercedes is what you use to tighten them down. Remember this thing? So you put this thing in there once you get them started. It's just indexed for that, like that. And then we'll have to, of course, get a big old socket and put on this thing and really tighten them down. But that's what we're doing. And then we're going to put the injectors in. We'll show you that. We got the manifolds all bolted back up. We finally got them, just playing with them to line back up, and we got those 7 bolts back in. And you notice we put some gasket sealer on this thing for the thermostat, and tightened up the two clamps on the hoses here, and tightened up these bolts, and so mounted all this back, mounted the bottom radiator hose. Now the next thing we want to do, we've got everything timed back in the engine, so it can't get out of time because the cam is turning with the crank, is turning with the injection pump. But what happens is these rocker arm covers won't go in unless the camshaft is at a particular position. So what you have to do is just basically set them there, and then rotate the engine to where you get those lobes away so that it'll go in. Now you see right now I've got 2 of them that are stuck. That lobe right there and that lobe right there. So if I rotate the engine the way it's supposed to be, about 20 or 30 degrees, then that ought to go in there. So we'll get with our 27mm wrench down here on the crankshaft, and you can look at that and tell me whenever it gets to a place where it looks like it might be ready.
Right there.
Okay.
Now that other one came into play.
Yeah, they come.
The one on the right now.
Yeah, we got to get that one up a little higher, but that one's coming. That one's coming as well. So you got to get it in just the right position, or it won't go in. And you see, it's got to go in quite a ways because the bolts, the holes, are way back in there where these 3 bolts have to go. So we got to turn it some more. That's clear. Now that one's in the way. Okay, so we finally got the valves all in the right position. And notice there are dowel pins that go in these 3 holes. So there's 3 dowels that stick up right there. And once we get the rocker, the arm, underneath the cam lobe for each one, and we get this cam in the right position, you can feel it when it goes in the dowels. And then we've just got these 3 bolts that each has a washer on it, and we should be able to get them right in there. There. Okay. Now for the next one. After we do this, we're going to adjust the valves. The intakes adjust at 10mm, the exhaust adjust at 35. We've got a whole video procedure on adjusting the valves. that's what we're going to do. It's critical. Okay, Gordon, we're putting the injectors in. Now there's a seal that goes in there. And the seal, you can see, is kind of cone-shaped on one side. That side goes down, and the flat part goes against the injector like that. Now that has to go down there. This is an old one, okay? I've already put it in. I put all of these in, but you can see the seal down in there. Those are a new set of seals that we have to put, okay? It's a heat shield, and it's a shield for compression. So now we're just going to tighten up the injectors. I'm sure the book gives a torque, but it's nothing that's very crucial. Just tighten them up tight with a breaker bar. We have to put return fuel line on these injectors. You buy this stuff by the foot, you know, or by the meter. And you can see that we put them all along here. Just all we do is jump from one to the other, to the other, to the other, and the final one comes back to the fuel assembly right here. Okay? Hey Gordon, we've got it all assembled back. We didn't show you every single thing that we did to get it back. We just assumed that you could reverse the procedure, but let us remind you while we're under here of a couple of things that we have done. You remember we had this power steering pump off in its bracket. We had to assemble that all back together. We had to put the fuel filter back on. We had to put the bracket that held this back on. We had to hook all this linkage back up, put this back on with the 4 bolts that hold it on the top of the valve cover. Of course, we've shown in many videos how to put the air cleaner back on. Don't forget there's a little air line back on the back. Remember we said that was broken, but it connects to the back of the manifold back here. Right back in this corner, remember, down here. And then there was a dipstick tube that we had to bolt back together. We showed you how to put the injectors back in, and of course we've tightened the ones down here. Now the reason we couldn't start it up last night, we had to charge the battery. It's been sitting for a couple of months and the battery was completely dead, so we're charging the battery up overnight, and now we think we've got enough juice to turn it over. And as I mentioned last night, what we do is we leave these injection lines loose here, and then we just turn it over until we can get diesel coming out of each one of these lines. And then as soon as we get wet diesel, then we know we've cleared all those lines of air. Then we tighten it up and start it up, and hopefully this thing is going to start up. Of course, we've put water in it. We had to make all these water connections. You remember we had where the thermostat is right here, we had all that apart, and so we put all that back together. We had drained it all of water. We had drained the block. We put that plug back in. Both radiator hoses, top and bottom, were off. We filled it up with water as best we could, but we know that the thermostat is going to be closed and it's going to be airlocked, and so it's going to have to run for a while, and then we're going to have to check the water. Of course, we put a couple of gallons of oil in it. We changed the oil in the whole process because it had some water in the oil as a result of blowing the head gasket. So we think we've got it ready to crank up. So what we're going to do is get inside the car and turn it over and just keep spinning it and spinning it and spinning it until we can get some diesel flowing out of the top, and then we'll try to lock them down and start it up. So here we go.
We got diesel coming out now.
Okay, so we got diesel coming out of the top of the injector, so now we're just going to tighten each one of them down. Gordon, we finally did get it running. There was nothing wrong with the time or anything, and the job is good. But you know, when you put all that back together, you got a lot of oil in the top of the cylinders because we oiled up the top end of all the cylinders because we had a blown head gasket. We had to scrape all the pistons down and get all the gunk off of them where it had some corrosion, and then we put a lot of oil up there. And so it acted like it wanted to start, I just couldn't get it going long enough. So I pulled up another one next to it, as you can see. And so I just jumped it, and I just cranked it and cranked it and cranked it. And I was about to the point of spraying ether in it because I knew that it would start soon. But before Gordon got back with the ether, it finally did start, and so you can see it runs great. Now it's got a little smoke when it first starts up because it's trying to burn off all that oil that normally isn't up there. And so that smoke will die down, but you can see that it runs great. We want
Here's the throttle. So we're done.
We're done. We got we made sure now that the thermostat opened, so we made sure that when the thermostat did open, we filled it back up with water. It's running at the right temperature, and so we're finished. We just want to make sure as we drive it in the next few days that we don't have any oil or water leaks because we had the entire system open, so we got to be real careful to make sure we don't have any leaks. But otherwise, we're fine.